Hi everyone, welcome back to the Property Finance Podcast, and today we're carrying on our series of FAQs, and one of the ones that I've had a few times quite recently is what documentation do I actually need when submitting either a mortgage, bridging application, or a development application. So I'm going to go through each one kind of individually and give you a bit of an idea of what documentation you need to prep for each one. So when it comes to a buy-to-let mortgage, HMO mortgage, or sort of serviced accommodation mortgages, the first thing that we always ask for, especially if it's an HMO or serviced accommodation, is kind of a breakdown of the income. So on HMOs, that would be an AST for each of the rooms. For serviced accommodation, that's going to be maybe a spreadsheet showing the income, void periods, maybe the next 6 months worth of bookings, for example, just to give us an idea of what the income's going to be. Buy-to-let's very simple, just copy the AST. Once we've got kind of a handle of what the income is, that then allows us to go out to the lenders, get a bit of a feel for what each one can offer you. And obviously, if you've listened to the What Can I Borrow podcast, then obviously you'll have a fairly good idea of why we need that income. And then what we do is, off the back of that, we're then going to ask you to submit application forms. All of those are going to ask you for inside leg measurements, everything that they can possibly think of. If you're doing a buy-to-let, you might need to submit 3 months worth of company bank statements, for example. So what I say to people is it's always worth having a Google Drive or files or whatever documentation storage system you might use, and putting in there copies of your ID, so driving license, passport, a utility bill, for example, have that in there. And that utility bill, always try and keep it within the last 3 months as well. Most people who use council tax bill, for example, have they become outdated very quickly. So water bill, gas bill, electricity, something like that. Just keep that in there and try and keep it dated within the last 3 months. That's very handy to have in there. The other thing to do as well is try and keep your last 3 months bank statements in there as well. And that's company and personal. So what I always suggest is at the start of every month, as you've had your last statement, just go into the files, take 1 month out, replace it with the newest month, and then you've always got 3 months in there on a rolling basis. What I would do with that file is then share it with your broker. So they've got access to it at all times. They can just go in, take the documents they need, and obviously submit them. Other than that, you don't really need anything for yourself on a limited company, buy-to-let, HMO or SA. A lot of it is all within that application form. So as long as you've got copies of the ASTs, your ID, bank statements, etc., then really everything else comes from those application forms. When it comes to bridging and development finance, the requirement for information is even less, really. So when it comes to bridging finance, for example, we really only need the details around the property. So we don't actually take a lot of information from clients beforehand. It is really just a case of, right, once you've found an opportunity, come to us, give us a breakdown of what you're looking at. So very brief, here's the property, here's what we're buying it for, here's what it's worth, here's what we're probably going to spend on it, here's the plan with it, the exit plan, for example. And that's normally presented in some sort of email format. What we do is then go out to lenders, and then obviously each lender comes back with an application form, and each one is going to have a slightly different requirement. Most of them don't require bank statements because with bridging finance, most of the interest is retained. So obviously you haven't got to make those payments, so they don't necessarily need to be going through bank statements to check obviously income or anything like that. Some of them might ask for a month's worth of bank statements just to check obviously the account and everything else as part of their ID and get to know your customer, anti-money laundering, all that kind of thing. When it comes to development finance, there's a slightly larger requirement of upfront information because we're going to want to see, obviously, the build cost breakdown. We're going to want to see the GDV breakdown. And what I mean by a GDV breakdown is your gross development value breakdown. It's your what's it going to be worth when it's finished, but actually breaking it down into individual units. So, for example, we've got developments at the moment of 13 houses, for example. What we want is a spreadsheet that shows those 13 houses, and we want to see, right, okay, each house is X square foot, X square meters, whatever. They're going to be worth Y when they're finished. And what that does is that presents to us a full breakdown of here's what we're doing, here's what we're building, here's what they're going to be worth. And obviously from the lender's perspective, then allows them to go and check comparables, etc., when they're doing their underwriting and due diligence. As well as that, obviously the build cost breakdown that we mentioned just a second ago, we're going to want to see an itemized breakdown. It doesn't have to be to the point of I need to buy 10,000 bricks, 20,000 bricks, 30,000 bricks, whatever. It just needs to be to the point of, right, the brickies are going to cost X, the foundation is going to cost Y, etc. Just back of a fag packet numbers to begin with. Once we get further into the process, obviously when you're dealing with the QS or the monitoring surveyor, you're then going to get to a point where they're going to want to go into detailed, right, this is what each bit is going to cost with the foundations, then breaking down the foundations into, obviously, groundwork is going to cost X, pouring is going to cost Y, whatever. As you can tell, I'm not a QS, so I'm just making random bits up, but in terms of that's when the more detailed side comes in. So as you can see from an actual requirement for information up front, we don't really have a huge amount. It's relatively simple. We like to keep things as simple as possible, really. It's when you get to the point of actually choosing a lender that then those information requirements become more intense. So create that file. I think if you're doing bridging and development as well, I think it's worth creating that file. With development, what I would suggest as well is get together a file of your experience, your contractor's experience, project manager's experience, put it all into one place, and then it's very easy just to send that out to your broker when they inevitably ask for it. And the other thing to prepare as well is potentially some sort of investor pack, maybe for deals that you've done previously or even ones that you're looking at moving forward, but having those investor packs all in one file that, again, you can just share out to your broker as and when you need to, because they're a good indication of this is the client's previous experience, or this is what you can kind of expect from this client moving forward. And I think it's handy to have those to hand whenever we're looking at deals. So not a huge requirement for info up front, but obviously once you've chosen that lender, that's where it's going to get more intense. So hopefully that helps. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.